Why hello, and welcome to U-Talk. I'm Ryan Funk. U-Talk is a program dedicated to diversity, highlighting native-born and new Canadians' cultures and experiences. According to Raven, a registered charity, reconciliation needs to recognize the land our Indigenous nations have been living on for centuries, and recognize their rights. Susan Smitten tells us more about Raven and their mission to raise funds for Indigenous people's access to justice.
Sure. I am Susan Smitten. I'm the executive director at Raven, which is an acronym for Respecting Aboriginal Values and Environmental Needs. And that's our official name, is Raven, Respecting Aboriginal Values and Environmental Needs. But everybody calls us Raven Trust because that's our website.
Were you there with the inception of the organization, or did you come on afterwards?
No, I built it.
You built it. Fantastic.
Yeah. So Raven turned 12 on April 1st. So in 2009, I was basically brought in by a board that had the idea of a charity, and they had put the effort into getting charitable status, but they basically had a letter from Industry Canada saying, here's your tax number, CRA, and do you think you could build this? So I took it on and set about to creating what is now Raven.
Let's just kind of go over the details of what exactly Raven is and what you do.
It's kind of unique because Raven is the only charitable nonprofit in Canada, and I think in North America, that raises legal defense funds to assist Indigenous nations who choose to enforce their rights in order to protect their land. And in doing so, they enforce their rights by going through the courts. And so we are fundraisers. Sometimes people get confused and think we're lawyers, but in fact, we're not. We are a team, fairly small team really, but of passionate fundraisers, communicators who bridge that gap between the nations who launch the legal challenges and come to us and partner with us, and then the donors who want to stand with nations and to assist by providing the resources that they need.
Since there were no other services like this, like there was a void that needed kind of a filling.
I'm surprised that other organizations haven't started up because the demand is growing. When Raven started, we were just assisting two nations, Beaver Lake Cree Nation in north of Edmonton and Lac La Biche area, and the Chilcotin, who were pushing back on a mine proposal by Taseko Mines. And it was just me. I was the only person. And so over time, we've grown to a team of 10, and we're working on 8 or 10 campaigns, and we've assisted something like 15 different nations now. But we're getting more and more requests for support. So I don't know that in the beginning, well, part of it was nobody knew Raven existed, and it took a while for us to build up any kind of track record. But I think now, with reconciliation being something that is supposed to be alive, but it's floundering, and nations are just taking to the courts because there hasn't been any actual tangible action from federal or provincial governments about land rights and returning land to the nations. The courts have become sort of that last place that they can go to. And so we actually have, the demand is there now. I don't know that it was right in the beginning, Ryan, but it is there now, and it's growing.
I know you're situated in Victoria, but do you work with nations across Canada?
Yes, we do. Yeah. We're actually, we've worked with nations in Yukon. We're just launching 2 legal actions in Ontario. We just got a request from a nation in Quebec. We've worked with nations in Alberta and we did predominantly work with nations in BC in the beginning because we were so small, that's where our reach was. Everybody was like, oh, did you hear about Raven? But the word is out, I think, now. And so more and more people are hearing about the work that we have done, and we are getting requests now from coast to coast to coast.
Yeah, and hopefully we can help spread that message a little more.
I hope so. Yeah, it's awesome.
So I know you've touched on it a little bit already, but what is the importance and significance of an organization like this?
Real reconciliation has to have an underpinning in understanding that it's about the land and Indigenous rights, and so that requires an upholding of those rights. And so the nations, though, to do that, their rights are protected in the Constitution, right? In Section 35 of the Constitution. But there's one thing to have a right, and then another thing to be able to afford to uphold it in a court, especially when you're up against the deep pockets of the federal and provincial governments, right? So, I mean, who could do that? And so it's about access to justice, and it's about making sure that the nations are thoroughly and well represented so that they have the best legal defense that they can have in terms of presenting their case. And it's interesting because I'm not a lawyer, but I'm learning a lot as we go along. And reconciliation actually has a meaning at law, which is reconciling the prior interests of the original landholders with this as yet unactually proven crown sovereignty. And so by using the courts, which a lot of people kind of go, well, the courts are a colonial system, and it's, yeah, and we agree. It's not necessarily the best possible system, but by allowing the nations to have access to it, they're actually going in and working to change the system from the inside out, right? They're reining in crown sovereignty by getting decision after decision that are upholding their rights, and in many cases now starting to acknowledge their Indigenous laws as well. So that's why it's important.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, especially our Indigenous population's culture has, basically been eradicated, pushed to the side. Now's the time to kind of protect it and protect our lands and these people that have been, historically taken advantage of.
I mean, decolonization, we got a long way to go, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing absolutely everything we can to get there. And so part of that is acknowledging that the land belongs to the nations, and we need to, and when the nations make a choice to go to court, then we want to be there, and with the support of all of the donors. And interestingly, the donors are literally just grassroots. We get donations of as little as $5 from people who want to give whatever they can because they understand that the burden on the nations is completely out of whack, and that we all benefit from the outcome.
Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned before, you can only work within the systems that are available. And then once you're in there, then you can help make a change to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm hoping that there will be a complete overhaul of systems. I think we need to, the University of Victoria has the new combined law program of Indigenous law and Aboriginal, aka colonial law, and I think at a certain point the legal system will shift and begin to work in a different way. It's glacial at pace, I'm afraid, but I think it will. I live in the hopes that that I will see this in my lifetime, but in that space while we're waiting, we just have to work relentlessly to stop the harm and make things better.
Yeah, that seems to be the unfortunate side of, social change and social, developments. It always just happens so slowly, even though it's like things you're like, what, we need this now? It seems like straightforward.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
You talked a little bit about, the donors and grassroots groups that help make this all work. So exactly how does an organization like this work? What is all needed to make it run?
Well, passion and a lot of magic. Actually, we have a lot of magic happening over here, but it's that blend of the being rooted in the narrative that the nations share with us, and then using absolutely every possible way to get that message out. Thankfully, now there's so many social media avenues, and we have a robust website, and then also working to find and connect with donors. So we do pretty much everything we can to let people know that we're here and that there are various ways they can donate online, by check, by e-transfer, et cetera. But and then we also apply for grants, and we don't take any government money. One of the things that Raven has stood on a principle of never applying for government funds, because we support nations that sue the government, and that
that would seem a little
a little awkward.
Yeah.
Awkward. So but we basically we have it set up so that people can donate, or we also created peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns so that we did that with the very first Pull Together campaign, which was the campaign we ran to support 7 nations that were litigating to stop the Enbridge Northern Gateway pipeline. And our tagline was, "Who knew it could be so much fun stopping a pipeline?" And we encouraged people to have parties and concerts and backyard barbecues and movie screenings and you name it, car washes, and raise $650,000 for the nations. And so it requires systems that allow us to track donors. We have to be able to issue receipts. So we have a tax receipting thing here. It's mostly just managing that space between the nations and the donors who want to support them. The funds come into Raven and we hold them in trust, marked for whichever campaign it's for. And then the nations send us their legal bills. They sign off on them, and then we just pay all of the costs.
How is ecological protection a part of Indigenous rights?
Things that we've been protecting are watersheds, right? The Peel watershed was protected by supporting 3 nations in Yukon and getting a Supreme Court decision that protected it. 80% of the Peel watershed. Protecting the lakes from open pit mining. Fish Lake is the settler name, but Tultan B in Chilcotin territory has been protected from Taseko Mines open pit project. The nations that we supported, as I just mentioned, that were litigating, stopped the Enbridge Northern Gateway pipeline from going through, and all of the potential spills on land and in water that could have, and we've been working to support the nations that were litigating to stop the former Kinder Morgan, now the Trans Mountain pipeline, because of the threat to the ocean and orcas. And so it's essentially, in most of the ecological protection comes through the fact that the nations tend to go to court because there has been some state-sanctioned, generally potentially damaging industry, often, mining the tar sands. And so it's about looking at what is the impact of that industry. And in many cases, the nations will say, look, we're not against mining, but we're against this project because look at the footprint it's going to have. Look at the legacy it's going to leave 7 generations out. This is not sustainable. There has to be a better way to do this. That's part of it. And it's also about the lack of consultation and the fact that going to a nation and saying, hey, I was given this permit and this is my idea of consultation is telling you this is what we're going to do. That's not consultation. That's, well, there's lots of words for that, but probably none of them are good for radio. So, there's many layers to this, but so ecological protection is just something that, the nations that we've been working with have been stewarding for millennia and we're also in that space between BC where there are very few treaties, almost none, and then the rest of the country where it's all under treaty. And so there is that issue that the treaties actually have a tension built into them because they promise the nations that signed them that they would have in perpetuity access to their traditional lands to hunt, trap, fish, gather medicines, and in perpetuity, right? Forever. However, the tension in the treaty is that there's an allowable taking up of lands by the government. And so the courts are still struggling to determine what's allowable and then what leaves the treaty still meaningful. If you have to travel 250 miles to find a moose, is that a meaningful treaty right? Not really. Or if the moose that you find is poisoned because it's been drinking water contaminated by tar sands industries, where's the meaningful nature of the treaty? So again, ecological protection is a multi-layered thing. And like I was just indicating, it's a very big topic.
That's a big topic. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the impact of Raven, some of the victories that you've achieved in some of your ongoing and current campaigns that you're hoping to, find some victories for our nations.
Yeah, well, so I sort of alluded to them, but we did support 3 nations to protect in Yukon, protecting 80% of the Peel watershed. That was a land use planning issue. We've managed to protect Toltambi Fish Lake from the threat of an open pit mine that would destroy not just the lake, but the lake stands at the head of the major watershed that goes to the Chilcote-Tesico and then Fraser rivers. So protecting that amazing ecosystem. We have supported Beaver Lake Cree Nation now for basically 12 years. And while it seems, like the tar sands continue to be taking over, and there is hope on the horizon there that there will be a reining in of that. And so some new campaigns that we have going on, we are supporting West Moberly First Nation in their legal action now against Site C, but it's against all 3 dams and the cumulative impact on their treaty rights. So hopefully it will be a stopping of Site C, but also an opportunity to do some mediation of the environment. We're supporting 2 nations in Ontario. One is still not public, but we are supporting Niskantaga, which is in the Ring of Fire area, and over this road building problem that the Ontario government is trying to push forward. And so hopefully pushing that aside and establishing their jurisdiction to that territory. We're working with the Wet'suwet'en still, who have 2 legal actions in court, and we're basically waiting on judgment for, there have been a couple of hearings, so we're in a bit of a holding pattern on that one. So we have, there's a lot of campaigns actually on the go right now. We are very busy. Yes. Yes, and we'll be launching even yet another campaign for a nation here in BC regarding mining again, and the impact of the Mineral Tenure Act and BC's adoption of DRIPA, which ties in with the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. So there's some interesting legal precedents that we're hoping to be pushing forward.
I'll have to stay tuned.
Yes, you will.
So I also see that your website has a lot of information on there. You have webinars and a podcast. So tell me kind of what is the kind of the hopes of putting that kind of information on there, and tell me a little bit about Raven's podcast.
Yeah. So we have a new podcast. We've just finished our second season. The podcast is Raven Debriefs, and people can pick it up anywhere you pick up your podcasts. We are sort of exploring the issues that are tangential or parallel to. So, for example, in season 2, we just did a 3-part series on Indigenous foodways, and so we focused on the Granny Gardens in Hiltzik territory. Jess Housey talks about that. We focus on Ed Jensen, who's a Secwepemc hunter, talks about, helping to keep the traditions alive, but bringing that into non-Indigenous communities. And then Nancy Turner, who's like world famous ethnobotanist, talks to us about a whole lot of amazing practices and right from, what would be on what would have been on a table for an Easter dinner, hundreds of years ago. So and the reason those are important is because that, again, is about the connection to the land. Why are we trying to protect the land? Because these systems are at risk if we don't. So things like that. And so, we're really loving that. And with COVID, right, everybody had to pivot. So we've been pivoting to lots of webinars. We're partnering with different organizations, like we have one coming up with Dogwood, and just really broaching different subjects. We had a fantastic webinar series with the people who were doing earth jurisprudence and around, the laws, the Polly Higgins group. And so that was really amazing. So we're just looking at different ways to engage and get people to think about Indigenous rights, Indigenous laws, and the land in different ways. So, and one of the ways people can even just learn about what we do is we have a newsletter, so they can just sign up on the website and get our newsletter, which comes out now and then. So,
yeah, really exciting stuff.
Yeah, well, it's there are so many aspects to it, and we keep learning and growing. I mean, we're a growing organization, and we're learning all the time too. So we just want to share that with people, and hopefully our enthusiasm is hopefully a little bit catching, and people want to learn more. And so that's what we encourage people to do. One of the easiest ways to get involved with Raven is to just sign up for our newsletter and join in some of the webinars that we're teaching or leading, and then we're always open to talking to people. And
what are some other ways people can help and get involved?
Well, they can also, like in terms, if there are particular campaigns that they're interested in, we have lots of businesses that have been joining and signing up. So, for example, we're members of 1% for the Planet, and lots of businesses can create events or campaigns. Some amazing local businesses like Banditas Taqueria created a menu item for Raven, and every order that was of that item, they donated a portion of that to one of the campaigns that we were running. Ernest Ice Cream did the same thing, where they created a flavor, and when people bought it, then, they would donate a portion of the proceeds. People can just get very creative. So they can host an event, they can sign up and create a peer-to-peer fundraising event. We love it when people share what we do and tell other people about Raven, because like I said, we're even after 12 years, we're still growing. And so it's sort of, we're beyond word of mouth, but it never hurts, right?
Oh, of course. It's never bad to have more people talking about your organization.
Yeah, and we just really love it when people show up at the webinars and share where they're at. We're just so grateful. Honestly, I think I want to share the fact that we're at most we are 10 people. Like if you mashed all of our hours down, we might be 7 people doing all this work. And we have an amazing board. We have a legal advisory panel that's fantastic, and we just have this great team we're so grateful for. Actually, there is one thing I want to share. We just launched a new fund. It's an intervener fund because a lot of the nations want to sometimes intervene on larger legal actions. For example, like the BC bitumen reference, and we supported 3 nations that had an important voice that needed to be there. Well, now we've launched an intervener fund that caps out at $20,000 per nation, but we're looking at trying to create more ways that nations can access justice and in a fast and nimble way. So we're pretty excited about that. That's on our website. And also we have some really cool educational stuff on our website, and we're about to launch a new educational program that's going to be a 10-module thing. But on our website, we have a really cool project that's mapped where we had the pro bono students at UVic mapped all of the major legal actions so people can go and learn about some of the legal precedents that have happened already. We have a lot of really interesting resources on our website that I would encourage people to just go and noodle around and find, and maybe there'll be something that really catches their attention, Plus we have a lot of really interesting blogs, and we're running a lot more Instagram lives. So there's those for people who are into listening to things.
Raven has recently launched an intervener fund, as many nations want to intervene on larger legal actions. Another way for nations to access justice. Raven is also launching a 10-module educational series. You can find details on Raven's funds, projects, and ongoing mission on their website at raventrust.com. If you have any stories you'd like us to share or communities we should highlight, leave a comment on our social media or reach out to us on our website. I'm Ryan Funk. This was U Talk, and have yourself a good one.